What is up guys, Andy Forest Theme Runner here, and today we're going to be diving in and comparing the Hoka One Rocket X to the Nike ZoomX Vaporfly NEXT and the Saucony Endorphin PRO. So welcome back to another video, and today I'm delighted to be comparing these three super shoes, these three carbon plated racers against each other. Now in my previous video, the long run test for this thing, I did say I wanted to get a few more runs in before stacking this thing up against the other shoes that I have in my rotation and comparing them for you guys. But there was a very common theme, a very common question that you guys were asking over the two videos of this shoe, and that basically is, does this thing mix it with the big boys? Does it put its name in the hat? Is it as good as the others? Would you, me, choose this thing to race in over the Nike ZoomX Vaporfly NEXT and the Saucony Endorphin PRO? And for me, already I know the answer to that question. And I want to share some information as to why I have come to the conclusion that I've come to, and maybe answer another question, which is this thing a carbon plated racer, or a very cheap carbon plated racer, or is it a very expensive training shoe? So let's dive in. If you're excited for today's video, guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and we'll start with the Rocket X. So let's not beat about the bush, let's dive straight into it. It's going to be a case of gliders versus gazelles. It's a phrase I used in the comments to a couple of you guys, and a phrase that a couple of you guys have used back at me. So I don't take credit for that phrase because I think a few of you used it, but it sums these two shoes up, three shoes up, absolutely perfectly. This is a glider and the other two shoes are gazelles. What do I mean by that? Well, in this shoe, as I said in my other two videos, and we won't be covering old ground, don't worry. If you want to know more technical information and how I feel on this shoe or any of the shoes, make sure you head back onto the channel and check out those reviews. But this one is simply going to be pros and cons of all of these shoes. And as I said, glider. This is a gliding shoe. It's a shoe that makes you just feel so smooth in transition, but lacks that pop that the other two have. And someone made an incredible comment which summed it up perfectly. So if this is you, hats off to you. I couldn't have said it better myself. The early stage meta rocker in this shoe basically eliminates any form of pop you get in the shoe. Basically what that means is as you land, the meta rocker design in this shoe that rocks you through your stride basically takes away any pop that you will get. So as I said in my long run video, as you land in the other two shoes, you get that popping sensation as you go through the gait cycle. But because of the early stage meta rocker, this thing, as you land, it just literally glides you through. So it really does then come down to preference. What feeling do you prefer when you're running? I ran the Gloucester 20 miler and the Gloucester half marathon back earlier this year in the Carbon X, a very, very similar profile shoe to this, and had that gliding sensation. I was in a pack of Vaporflies, about 4 or 5 of us running. The other 4 people were all in Vaporflies and I was in my Carbon X, and the noise that the Vaporflies make is immense, the slapping on the ground and the pop off, whereas my Carbon X were deadly silent. And that just highlights how smooth of a ride the Rocket X is. But does that take away from its performance? So obviously a lot of the performance element is obviously down to testing, science-based stuff, all of that, but a lot of it is of course in here. How do you feel in the shoe itself? How do you feel when running? And I think a lot of people now that have tested both these shoes, maybe the New Balance Fuel Cell RC Elite, I haven't tried that, find that the pop-off sensation, just use the Pro for an example, as you land, that snap that you get as you push away in here makes you feel like you've got that extra bit of energy. I know myself, the feeling I get from both these shoes is a really positive one when I'm running and I'm running fast. I kind of feel like these shoes are on my team. They're working with me, with my stride, to help me get a better time, if that makes sense. And that is all down to the ergonomics, the design, the stiffness of the plate and the pop. Now the plate in these two shoes is far more aggressive than you will find in the Rocket X, and that simply is down to the early stage Meta Rocker, and I guess the curvature of the plate, the design, the way the foam is nullifying that feel sensation of the plate. There's probably so many factors that go into it. I don't know them all myself. I'm just giving you some suggestions as to why it could be as it is, but certainly as you land with these shoes, you get that sensation, and this is the best example. It's so rigid and you can really feel that plate bending in there, and as you do the same with this one, there's just such a tense rigidity in there and you can feel that it's going to pop. But this one is so much more flexible than the others, and that's really interesting because naturally that popping sensation is going to be created down to the tension that's in the plate, along with other factors. Of course, the midsole foam will help massively, but with the Rocket X having a little bit more flexibility, it leads me to think that actually the tension in that plate is less, therefore the popping sensation is less, therefore what are you actually gaining in terms of performance? Now, talking of performance, I do know from running in the Carbon X and running my PBs, my old PBs in the Carbon X, that this type of profile with the early stage Meta Rocker and the similar carbon plate, very similar design, works well. I felt really smooth, especially my 20 miler, so I know that actually these shoes can do the distance and can do the marathon distance, and for that reason I'm gonna say yes, these are a very affordable carbon plated racer. No, they are not a very expensive daily trainer, but I'm going to put a clause in that. Do I think I would mix this up with the big boys? Having run in the Carbon X and having run in my other shoes, I have to say that in terms of performance, this very much fits in with the best of the rest category. I think for me, Next Percent is top level. The Saucony Endorphin Pro is just behind it. I absolutely love the feel of that shoe. I prefer the feeling of the Pro to the Next Percent, but the Next Percent just delivers that little bit better. And then I've got to say that I would put this thing in third place as far as that goes. How far down in third place? I don't know as yet. I do intend on using this thing in some races when races come back. Who knows when that will be, but for now in testing, I just need to do some more miles and check on heart rate and see how efficient I am. I love running in this shoe, just like the Endorphin Pro, but I have to say, in terms of performance, I'm going to have to still give the edge to the Next Percent. So I hope I've articulated that well. Let me know in the comments below if that was a little bit of a waffle or if I've done an okay job of that, because I'm trying to explain this in the best way possible. It very much is a case of Gazelles versus gliders, but ultimately at the end of the day, it comes down to you and what do you prefer and how do you prefer to feel. I've raced enough in the Carbon X and not yet in the Rocket X, but very similar profile shoe with this more subtle design with the carbon plate, that smoothness, 20 miles in this thing at the Gloucester 20, running a 2:02, whatever it was, feeling fantastic from start to finish. So I know that I can race in this shoe and I know that I will absolutely love it, but I also know that I can race in this shoe, will also love it, and if I'm honest with you, have the edge in terms of performance. But as I said, it comes down to how you want to race, how you want to feel during that race, and what type of runner you are, because ultimately, if you prefer to sit back and glide and feel smooth and effortless, then 100% don't look further than this shoe. But if you're after and chasing those extra seconds, want that performance and want that pop because mentally it's going to give you that edge over your competitors and over your previous race experience, then look no further than something like the Endorphin Pro or the Next Percent, if you can get your hands on them. So there we go, that's my comparisons between the three shoes. Hopefully that answers that burning question. If you have any more questions though, do let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them as best as I can. And of course, as always, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content. I can't even speak now, and I will see you on the next one. Until then.